welcome everyone. Thanks for being with us. It's the first meetup of our PowerShell user group Rhein-Neckar in 2024. And yeah, what better way to start it with having a real PowerShell legend with us. Yeah, it's true, Jeff. So I think, yeah, I guess everybody knows you, but I mean, you're a multi-year MVP, author of multiple books like this one here, or co-author, and Pluralsight author. Actually, and we met last year in person in Prague at the PSConf EU, which was great. And yeah, really looking forward to your session. So just very briefly, so as mentioned, Ryan and I, we run this user group for a couple of years now. We restarted it last year as at least at this point, as an online only, which has, of course, its advantages and disadvantages, but for the time being, we're doing it online. And yeah, you obviously found us on Meetup already. We're also have a page on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on YouTube. That's the channel where the recording will be available, and the user group is sponsored by ScriptRunner, which accidentally is a company I'm working for. And if you're interested in one of the PowerShell goodies that we provide, like a PowerShell poster, security ebook for PowerShell and for Teams and Exchange, feel free to go to our website and you can yeah, get that stuff, and you can download it from there. And the last info, just for upcoming events, there will be the PowerShell DevOps Global Summit in the US in April, and then in June there will be the PowerShell Conference Europe in Antwerp, where I'm going to attend. And as I learned, also Martin will be there. Maybe other people who are with us today will be there. Would be great to meet you. And yeah, so with this, I talked enough. So I would say, and I hope you're able to share. I didn't even.
Yeah, well, let's find out here.
Yeah, that's. So I'm stopping sharing, and let's see.
All right, so let's see if it will. Let's see if it'll let me share my entire screen. Yeah, let's try a window.
That looks good.
So you should all see VS Code.
Yes, perfect.
And if I jump to the console, that's all visible, nice and easy to read. Okay.
Yes, yeah, looks great.
You're welcome to use the chat, but I don't see the chat when I'm presenting. So if any questions come up, just pop in and interrupt me. Okay.
Yeah, and I will watch the chat as well. So if there's something comes in, I will ask the question.
And at some point, you know, when I'm all done, I'll kind of polish up my demos here and I'll put it up on probably the GitHub gist, and I'll share the link, and then you can add it to the show notes for the YouTube channel.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
I have no slides because slides are kind of a silly thing in 2024. So no one wants to see slides, but they just want to see this stuff in action. So I want to talk today about PSStyle, which is a feature originally introduced in PowerShell 7 that I just assumed everyone immediately started using. But based on some interactions I've had with people on social media over the last couple of days, you know, kind of announcing this session, I don't think that's necessarily the case. So maybe this will be new for some of you. Maybe some of you this will be kind of a review, or maybe for some of you, it'll just be, well, I didn't know you could do that. Well, that's totally cool, and I want to do that. So hopefully I can give you some ideas about how you might integrate this idea of PSStyle into your interactive PowerShell work as well as your scripting. Now, in Windows and in PowerShell, we have had support for ANSI escape sequences, things that will generate color on the screen, for a very long time. However, the host has to support it, the hosting application. So the traditional consoles and Windows Terminal, which is the best thing to be using, all support ANSI escape, all support ANSI escape sequences, which means you can also do PSStyle. This does not work in the PowerShell ISE. The easiest way to tell if it's going to work for you is to run get PS readline option. Now, I don't know if I have the integrated console running here or not. I don't, so I'm going to have to retype all these things here because I wanted to start in a totally pristine environment because I configure a lot of PSStyle stuff in my profile, and I wanted to show you what you might see out of the box. So get PS readline option. Now you see here all these color options. It's got the little backtick E and then a square bracket and then some number sequence. Those are ANSI escape sequences. They basically start with a control character, with the escape character, which in PowerShell 7 you do with the backtick E. Otherwise, you can just use character code 27 to do the escape character, and then you have to look up the ANSI escape sequences, and you can see PS readline shows you the different colors. So like green is square bracket 32M, and so on. So if you're on get PS readline option and you see output like this that's colored, then you know that PSStyle will work for you. And again, I'm using PowerShell 7 here. So let's go back here. So in the old days, before we had PSStyle, we could use ANSI escape sequences like this. So I'm going to define the escape character, which can be backtick E, or backtick E only works in PowerShell 7. Character 27 will work both cross-platform and in PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. I'm going to define then a color green, italic, which is another option. And when you create a ANSI escape sequence, you need to make sure you tell the host when to stop using ANSI escape sequence, and that is always 0M. So I'm just going to, I guess I have to copy, paste. So here I'm going to define my string. So this, and I'm just using character substitution, variable substitution. So the string is going to put in my ANSI escape sequences. And now if I look at $string, and let's scroll up there. So there you can see there's the green text, and you can also hopefully see that that is italic. You could do that now in Windows PowerShell and in PowerShell 7, but that gets kind of tedious, and you have to look up the ANSI escape sequences and all of that. Now, one thing you can do if you want is if you install my PS Script Tools module from the PowerShell gallery, there's a command called show ANSI sequence. And this will show you all of the basic sequences. It'll give you an example of what the ANSI escape code is. And if you want to see foreground examples as well as background examples. So that might be something of interest to you. PSStyle simplifies all of this so you don't have to resort to trying to figure out what escape sequence you want to use to colorize your output. Although you can certainly use these escape sequences. So I still use this a lot to find the color I want and then use that with PSStyle, and you'll see that later in the demo. All right, so let's look at some basics here with PSStyle. So PSStyle is a built-in variable in PowerShell, or I should say PowerShell 7 to be specific. you can type $PSStyle, 2 S's, and you will get an output that shows you all of the properties and the corresponding colors or sequences that go with that. And this is actually a rich object. So I could do PSStyle.foreground, for example, and look at just all the foreground colors or background and see all the background options that are available to me. All right, so you have that in Windows PowerShell. You have that in PowerShell 7. This is, as I said, a rich object. Get type member, the command I'm about to show you, is another command that I have in also in that PS Script Tools module. It's kind of like, it's a get member alternative that will show you the properties of an object class without having to, this will get an instance of pipe to get member. So you can see that there are some static methods that we can use. You can see all the different properties and all the colors. All of the settings in PSStyle, all those properties are read only. You cannot change, for example, PSStyle.foreground. You see there that value for green? You cannot change what green means. This is hard coded in PowerShell. You also have to be aware that depending upon the hosting application, if you are using some sort of color theme, it may slightly alter what these colors look like. So it's kind of hard to tell on my screen. And certainly I have no idea how it's looking in the recording, but like blue and bright blue, even though they technically have different color values, 34 versus 94, on my screen right now, they look the same. And that's because of the, I think of the color scheme that is VS Code is using. Depending on Windows Terminal, what color scheme you're using, you could get, I thought I turned all of that off, you could get different values. So you can see what's red, but what's red might ultimately depend upon the hosting application. Hope that makes sense to everyone. All right. So we can do that. Oh, there's also another option we're going to look at here in a moment, another property, PSStyle formatting. These are nested properties that have their own values, right? So you can see those listed there. And again, this is all out of the box. You don't have to do anything. You have PSStyle available to you. Now, I also created a format file. I thought I turned off my mail. Hold on a moment here. Let me kill Thunderbird. All right, now we won't be interrupted. I created a formatting file. So let's do update format data. Now, what did I call it though? All right, so that format file allows me to look at, I've created a custom view. Let's try this one more time. Because I wanted to be able to see just the basic options. There are properties that show you the foreground and background, but I wanted to see just the basic. I suppose I could have created a type extension and added a property called basic that had that nested, but I created a format view because I wanted to see the actual value and also see it being formatted. So if you look at closely, for example, like at italic here 3, you can see on the screen it is italicized. So I have some tools here you can use if you want to see what the values look like on your screen. I was just working in PowerShell ISE, which I normally don't do, but now my muscle memory has been ISE, and I'm got to switch back to the muscle memory for VS Code. So PSStyle is also available. I think I probably mentioned this later, but let's do it here. In Windows PowerShell, there is a module called PSStyle that's written by Sean Wheeler, who does all the Microsoft Docs. This is designed to provide some sort of compatibility in Windows PowerShell. It won't give you everything that I'm going to show you, because some of the PSStyle stuff in PowerShell 7 is baked into PowerShell. But if you want to have the PSStyle variable and use some of the features, you can install the PSStyle module on Windows PowerShell and have some comparable experience. It's not a down level or back port. It's kind of a best you can do to give you some of the features of PSStyle. So let me mention that before I forget. All right. So how can we use PSStyle? One thing that we can do that we've done in PowerShell 7 is we've replaced the use of host private data. Some of you may remember, if you wanted to change, for example, the color of an error, which is by default is red, or change the verbose color from yellow to something else, you could modify $host.private data and change one of these properties. In PowerShell 7, this has been replaced with $PSStyle. So we have a couple options here. One, even though in private data, you can see there are some progress options. In PSStyle, there's a progress property, and you can see where we can set the style. So that's the color. We can also specify the view and the width and all of that. And also PSStyle, excuse me, has a formatting. So we'll get to some of these. So here, if I want to change the error color or the warning or verbose strings, this is where these things are set. I'm pretty sure now in PowerShell 7, if you change host.private data and change like the error color, it won't change in your session. You need to change it here in $PSStyle.formatting. So I'm going to give you a taste here. So normally, I could write a command in PowerShell. There we go. All right, so you can see, and it's in the same color as the warning colors that you see up here. Now, I'm going to combine some settings here. So I'm not necessarily going to change the warning output stream, but I'm going to change the message string itself. So actually, I'm going to change it here. So I have this highlight. It's kind of hard to see here. Let me scroll up here. All right, so I set the warning, the PSStyle formatting warning, and I'm making it a black foreground, italicized, and I'm making the background bright magenta. So now if I just rerun that right warning, now you can see the change there. All right, so if you wanted to change what your streams look like, that's how you would do that. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to customize the string itself. Let's do this. So now the string $warn, I'm going to make it blink. Foreground color is green, so that's going to be around danger. Then I'm turning the blinking off and turning off the foreground color. So danger should be green blinking, and then Will Robinson. So if I just show you just the warning string, oh, And it may be that the blinking doesn't work in VS Code. This will work in the PowerShell console, but I did not test this in VS Code, and the blinking doesn't work. But if I do write warning, $warn, yeah, and that VS Code didn't quite like that. If you try this in the regular PowerShell console, you'll have a better experience. I'm only sharing VS Code, so I'm not going to try to pop over to the terminal to show this to you. But you can get a taste for how that looks. And if I wanted to, I could change errors. So I'm going to change my errors to bright green. So instead of having being red by default, that's a much nicer thing to have in your system. These changes that you make, like I made here, only persist for as long as PowerShell is running. If you want, for example, to always have your errors displayed in green, you would put this line of code in your PowerShell profile script, right? So this is not persistent. You would have to add these settings as you need them. Doing good so far?
Looks great.
All right, so let's go back to look at some of the formatting. Nope, not foreground. Let's do formatting. So you can see there I've changed the warning, and you see their table header, which is in green. So if I do get service bits, there you can see that the table header is in green. If I wanted to, I can change that. Now, in this case, instead of setting the value to use another PSStyle like foreground or background color, I'm just using a raw ANSI escape sequence, something that I just built or uncovered with that show ANSI sequence command. So I'm combining bold, which is the 1, and then you separate your values by semicolons. 3 is italics, and then the 385153 is my basically my RGB color sequence that I want to use. So now, if I do get service bits, you can see that the header now is in kind of a light blue and it's italicized. If I look at the formatting, you can see that listed there. So maybe you want to have a different look for your table headers. You're not stuck with the green text. You can make it something else that you want. Now, this one, I kind of took me a moment to figure out what was going on here. So see, there was this format accent, which is green. Notice, see it in PSStyle formatting. If you look at the properties, see they're all green. Basically, they're using this format accent. I'm going to change that to cyan. Now, see, all of this is set this way. So if you want to change like the way that properties are displayed, instead of it being green, you can change that format accent property. So, so far, these are all things that you would probably want to do to enhance your experience at the console as you are creating or just basically doing your job from the console with PowerShell. Another feature, which is really cool and something that I use a lot, is file system, and PSStyle has a way of colorizing that. So PSStyle includes a set of file info settings. Now, it used to be when PSStyle first came out in PowerShell 7.2, I think, I can't remember exactly what version, In order to get this file info stuff to work, you had to turn on an experimental feature. I'm running 7.4. And let's double check when I'm running. Yeah, I'm running 7.4.1. So all of this file info stuff is now enabled automatically. If you're running a much older version of PowerShell 7, you might run into some issues, but hopefully you're not. So how does this work? So you can see that this will highlight different executables, links, directories. You can see there's a whole list there of file types. If I just do a directory here, you can see I have an images directory, and you can see that's formatted using the file, that file info discussion or file info colors. And you can see the different PowerShell files. Let me come back and give you the file intro. So you can see that all by default, all PSD1, all PowerShell files share the same ANSI escape sequence, which is what you see there. So that's kind of cool, just by itself, just out of the box. But what would be better would be to expand this. And this is one place where you can expand what PSStyle can do. You can change the settings. So let's do that. I'm going to change my directory style to be bright blue plus italic. So now you can see it's kind of a bright blue and it's italic. If you want, you can change or update or add the file extensions. The file extension definitions are stored in a dictionary object. So we can see that that is a dictionary. So I can, for example, a little trick here. If I just, let's just do this so you can see what I'm talking about. If I just do that, that shows me the value for the PSM1 extension. That value is a PowerShell or an ANSI escape sequence, which is basically invisible to you. It's only really processed by the console, but you'll notice that my prompt changed colors. That's because that extension or that value in the extension doesn't include the reset value. So if you find yourself getting stuck like this, just do PSStyle reset, and that will turn that off. Now, I want to see, for example, let's say I want to see what is the value for that PSM1 file extension in PSStyle. So I can call the toString method, and then all I'm going to do is replace the escape character, backtick E, and I'm going to escape the backtick with another backtick. So now I can see the actual string. If I wanted to use it in some way, it's backtick E, square bracket 33, semicolon 1M. So that's the value that's being used for the PSM1 file extension. I'm going to change that, and I want it to be, and again, I'm going to use my own custom ANSI escape sequence. You could use $PSStyle, foreground and some color if you want, or background or some other combination. I'm going to just create my own color because I know what I want. So now if I do directory, now you can see the PSM1 file has a different parameter or a different color than all the other PowerShell files. You can also add a new item to the extension list. So I'm going to add a value for PNG files. which I have some in this directory. Oh, no, they're in the images directory. Oh, no, oh yeah, there it is, right there. There's the PNG file. So you can see it's kind of a like pinkish salmon color. I didn't have that color there before. Again, these extensions only last for as long as your PowerShell session is running. So if you want to kind of manage things, let's see if this will work. What did I call that? PSStyle. Oh. Well, that's not what I wanted. Because I'm not in the integrated editor, integrated console. Let's use code. There we go. That'll work. All right, so I have a set of functions here that will allow you to import or export your PSStyle file info settings to a JSON file. So what I have done is I have exported my settings to a JSON file. What did I call it? File info. Oh, really original. So all my settings are stored in a JSON file. So in my profile, basically what I do is I use the commands from this function and import so now you can see the colors are much different. And you can see all the extensions that I have listed there. So I found that quite useful. I just can configure everything I want. When I have the settings I want, I can export to a JSON file, and then my profile, import that JSON file and configures all of my file settings the way that I want them to be. So any directory, you can see I get the same colors. I should probably come up with, the text files are actually kind of a lightish blue. It's kind of hard to see there, but they are colorized. All right, so those are some ways that I use PSStyle. Let's look at some ways to customize it. Let's do this. Let's use my get type member command here. Now, I showed you to show ANSI sequence, which will show you different colors. But if you're trying to find other colors, one of the things that we have available to us are all the drawing colors in the .NET framework. Part of them come from the system console colors. These are the colors that you see when you do write host. So those are all the possible values. If I wanted to, $PSStyle, here we do this way, so you can see that, $PSStyle dot foreground. All right, so the foreground, this object type has a method called from console color. So I can say, hey, I want to create a string that's going to take the magenta color from the console and colorize the string, and then I'm just going to use PSStyle reset. Right, so I can use the console colors if I wanted to. If I say, hey, I like the console color magenta, whatever that happens to be, I want to use that. There is also a method that will allow you to specify or define a color based upon its RGB value, red, green, blue. So you basically just give it the red, green, and blue bytes. It's really that simple. But how can you discover? Well, here, I can do it real quickly here. So let's do from, I'm just going to make up something here. Let's do 100, 100, 100. No. I'm making this up as I go along here. PSStyle reset. Oh, forgot my opening quote. Yeah, and of course, because let's change that. Change it 200. No, because it's not a semicolon, it's a comma. There we go. That's close to green. So if you wanted to, if you happen to know what your RGB values are, you could do that. Well, how can I do that? One of the things you could do is I put together a quick little module here. And again, I'll share this with you. Called Drawing Color Tools. This is not a full-fledged module with help and all that. There's no manifest. Everything is just basically in one piece in one file. But I can do some conversions here and get RGB values. So I can do get drawing color. This will show you all of the colors that you would see like in the WPF form. So like royal blue, salmon, chartreuse, pale green, and this command then shows them to you formatted in the corresponding color, so you can see what color is powder blue really look like. And if I do, for example, I want to look at Alice blue. All right, so I can see Alice blue, and I can see it has RGB values of 240, 248, and 255. And also shows me the ANSI escape string if I wanted to use. So I wanted to set a value for one of the PSStyle settings using basically the equivalent to Alice blue. Here I now know what to use. And I also, if you're doing something with a HTML, I also give you the HTML equivalent. I created a custom format view that will also show you all of the colors with their RGB values, the corresponding strings, and then a sample. So once you know all of this, you can say, hey, I want to know what's the RGB value for Alice blue. That's another way that's easier to see it. So I'm going to take different colors. Let's do yellow green. and I'm going to convert that to its ANSI escape sequence. I'm going to save that to a variable $YG. Now, remember, the sequence is kind of hidden, so you can't see anything. Do YG to string. Yep, remember, got to do the whole replace. So that's the escape sequence that I'm using. Let's reset here. Yes. So I'm going to build a string here using that custom color. So I'm going to use my custom ANSI color, yellow-green, which I got from the drawing color, converted to ANSI. I'm then using the PSStyle to underline and italic, and then I'm resetting it. So special uses the yellow-green color, italicize, underline from PSStyle, and then reset. So you can build custom formatted strings however you want, using whatever kind of color sequences you want. All right, let's finally look at how we might include all of this in our scripting. So everything I've shown you so far are things that you might want to do. Some of them, maybe with your script, like if you want to colorize, message strings, you could do that. A lot of this I do when I'm working interactively in PowerShell, and I take advantage of like the file info. Just it gives me a little more information as I'm looking at things. So let's look at doing this in scripting. So I mentioned message strings. So I'm going to create a message string here. So let's say I just want to, I've got a little progress message I want to display to the user who's running some code. Now, it looks like a lot there, and it is kind of keys, but you only have to type it once. So this is going to display a line. Well, let's find out what it's going to do. So let's just say I'm then using write host $info. So this shows me the PS version in blue. So I had here in blue, then reset. I don't know why I've got reset twice. I think that's a typo. I'll fix that. And then I am setting the version number in yellow, reset, and then the operating system in bright cyan, reset. And then the period is not there. So I can colorize the output of the command. I must have, when I pasted something, I must have pasted it twice. So let's clean this up here. And let's make sure this still works. What you have to be careful of is with spacing, because sometimes the ANSI escape sequence, whether you're using it natively or with PSStyle, still has a width, even though it's basically visible. It still kind of takes up a character of space, so you may need to double check. Let's check this one more time. All right, that looks better. All right. So you could customize strings. I'm going to reset my warning formatting. Now, let's say in my script, I want to display a warning message. And I want to say, could not find part of the path, but I'm going to format what that looks like. And I want it to be italicized. And I'm using a from RGB color, the from RGB method, and specifying a red, green, blue value. Then the name of the directory, and then reset. I can always test it just by doing $message by itself. So there you can see that, oh, and again, PSStyle must not like italic here in VS Code. But this should work in the PowerShell console as it worked when I was testing it. So let's do write warning, $message. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm making, it is italic. I'm making the path italicized. So now, warning, I'm going back to my color scheme that I like to use for warnings, which is kind of this orange color. And then the could not find part of path, that gets colorized from write warning. And then it doesn't override the ANSI escape sequence for C word, which is italicized in that kind of pinkish color. So you can make your warnings or verbose messages or information messages really make them stand out, or make particular pieces of information stand out by using PSStyle or any of these ANSI escape sequences. So let me show you one other thing. Some of you may have remembered that earlier this year I was on the PowerShell scripting, or the PowerShell podcast, and I issued kind of a scripting challenge, and to go through a GitHub repo and look at all the issue labels and build reporting around it. So I posted the solution. I'm going to reuse it here because part of the solution takes advantage and incorporates ANSI escape sequences. So let's look at my code here. So in my code, which has commands to go ahead and get the functions, it actually is also loading a custom format file. So the output for my commands are just using native PowerShell objects, nothing fancy, just objects and properties. They are not formatted in any way. They're not using PSStyle. I want to use PSStyle for formatting the output. So if I look at code. So I have a view here called URI, which I'll show you here in a moment. And I've got a script block that defines, I'm going to use actually another method of the PSStyle, and that is create a hyperlink. And so for the hyperlink, I'm getting the repository property and then specifying the color that I want to use, which is going to be from an RGB value as italicized. Well, you'll see all this here in a moment. So here is another example where I'm using this in the, well, you know what? I think we just need to, let me do it so you can see, then we can go back and look and see how I did it. I'm probably putting the cart before the horse. All right, so I need to .sources. And I'm going to get all the issues and labels from my PS script tools module, assuming I can copy and paste. All right. So the default output shows me the repository in a color. I have code in the formatting file, the PS1 XML file, and that's what I was starting to show you here. That if the percentage total is greater or equal to 75, I'm doing it in this color and then using PSStyle reset. If it's greater or equal to 49, it would be a different color. So that's why I only see, oh, and you see these table headings that's left over from earlier in my demonstration. That is not part of PSStyle. Formatting, come on. Remember, I made that change earlier to changing what the header looked like. So that's where that is coming from. My formatting file is not doing that. Nope, $R. Now I created the custom formatting table. So R format table view URI. Now you can see I have this link. So I built in basically a hyperlink in my terminal in the output. And I also created hyperlinks to each of the issues. I don't know why my column heading is a little wacky there, but I can deal with that later. But you can see by adding that formatting style with PSStyle and ANSI escape sequences to my format file, I now have output that adds additional value other than just reading the data. It's actually data that I can literally interact with. I can click on the link and open up the repo or go and look at it. So that's, I think, a really interesting way to use PSStyle to go above and beyond just, making it pretty to look at.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's using the method here, the format hyperlink method for PSStyle. So you just basically give it the text and the link that you want it to go to. Look, kind of like any other markdown or hyperlink that you would do. And then I have used this also. If you look at my PSScriptTools module, I have a number of formatting files, or I also have commands in that module. Like there's a get PSScriptTools, and it uses a custom formatting file, and you see it changes all the verbs and it colorizes the verb to kind of make that stand out. My get PSWho command also uses color, so that if you are running this and you are elevated, it shows this in a different color, versus if you aren't elevated, then it'll just be in, I think it's white. If you import the PSScriptTools module, there is it's kind of more of a proof concept where you can see how this works. So get service, I have a table for service objects as a custom view called ANSI that will display the status in red or green, depending on whether it's running or stopped. And another sample command from that module, get sim class property. And I think my VS Code session is really getting wonky now, because that is not supposed to be doing that.
Now it starts to look like art to me.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what anyway. Or the last thing that you might want to do, let's see if this will work for me here, is put it in a prompt. So here is a prompt function. It uses some code. If you have a really long path, it'll shorten it. But the main thing I want to show down here is I am using the from RGB method to colorize and italicize part of the path. And then also showing the version table. So let me just load this prompt. So there you go. So you can see the code colorizes and formats the date time, and then it also puts the path. If I go to, for example, so there's an example of how my prompt is shortening the prompt. So it kind of truncates it, makes it a little bit easier, but I like that little color scheme. Oh, and I also added code in the prompt that if I go to a module or a directory that has a GitHub repo, I don't know if you can tell by that little green, that little pointer turned to green. So there is there's a Git directory in here. If I go back, you can see that it changed to white. So you might want to do that. And actually, that's what I do in my prompt. I have some colorization using PSStyle. All right. Now, last thing, in case you wanted to disable some things, there is an output rendering. If you set it to plain text, so right now, get servers bits shows me the really wonky. So I'm going to change that to plain text, and that basically turns off some of the PSStyle. So I disable PSStyle. My color in my prompt here with the date, that, if you remember, is using the, what am I doing here? Oh, see it. Oh, yeah, I need to fix that. I'm gonna have to play with this. That's using right host foreground color yellow. Let's get rid of that because I don't want that. All right, so now you can see that it turned off because I turned off the foreground color, and also I have turned off output rendering. Yeah, I've seen this where VS Code just kind of starts getting really weird in how it transfers things here. So your other option is you can set it to host, or you can set it to host will basically mean if the host will support ANSI escape sequences, it will use it, and I believe that's the default, or you can force it using ANSI. So now you can see my prompt is now using the colors from the PowerShell style, from PSStyle. And this is bold, and that is colorized. So you can turn off PSStyle if you want. Again, you can't change. Yes. So you can see all of the colors here are get. You can't change what blue looks like. That's hard coded in PowerShell. But you might get it, again, a slightly different value depending upon the hosting application and how it interprets what it thinks blue should look like. So you need to kind of experiment. as long as you don't go too crazy with color themes, it should be close enough. I know there are some VS Code color themes and some Windows Terminal color themes that are really out there. That could affect what PSStyle kind of looks like. So it's not that you can guarantee everything will look always the same, but that's how you can do it. So that is kind of my look about how you might want to use PSStyle. Again, I think it has a great value in your interactive work and lots of things you could do with scripting in terms of colorizing your messages. Just know that if you colorize a message and save it to a text file, the ANSI escape sequence will be included in the text file. So you'll see the backtick E and then the ANSI escape sequence in the text file with the message. So just be aware of that. All right, that was all I had. I'm amazed I got through all of that. Question or things that people were wondering about. Does that look useful to anyone?
So I think no questions at this point. For me, it was really fascinating because I'm all for customization. That's number one, and I think these are really great ways to kind of improve the readability of important information, no matter if it's interactive or if it's comes from a script. So I think that's really cool, and people seem to like it as well. I see a lot of hearts and people clapping. So even though we don't hear from the people, I think they really liked it. That's yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's a great way for, as I said, for customization and for readability, and it's really cool. You showed some very cool examples. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll get that posted somewhere and I'll shoot you the link and then you can share it out.
Yeah, perfect. So, and I also put in the chat the link to your GitHub repo where people can also find your modules you mentioned besides the PowerShell gallery. And I think we had a few people now joining in. I guess kind of because we have different time zones. People think maybe we started an hour later, and also now because in the States they're already in daylight saving time. Europe is not. So, but the good news is the session is recorded. So for everyone who joined late, just maybe the last couple of minutes, the recording will be available hopefully by next week, and you will get the info when you follow us or follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and then you will get the info. So yeah, so I still can't see any questions. So
they're flabbergasted. They're stunned. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, they're all colorized now. It's like seeing all the colors, which again I think is really great. So make the console and the work with PowerShell also more fun. I mean that's another thing, right? And showing other people.
I can add another layer of information.
Yeah.
To what I'm seeing on the screen. So I see the text and then, oh, it's red. Oh, that means something. It's green. That means something.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of piling up meaning in my PowerShell output.
Yeah, and kind of categorizing types of information with specific colors that you and other people start to realize when they see it again, like, okay, this yellow means this and orange means this and light blue means this. So I think there are a lot of applications for this for these options for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about or cover it, but with PS readline, all those color sequences, you can edit. There's a set PS readline command, set PS readline option. I can't remember. I'm blanking the exact name, but you can modify those colors. So if, for example, you can't see because of your color scheme, you can't see the color being used, say for a comment, you can change that. That's not persistent. So you'd want to put that change in your profile.
Yeah.
And you can use the PSStyle settings. So if you say, hey, I want the comment color to be $PSStyle.foreground.green, you can do that. And you can use the PSStyle settings. So if you say, hey, I want the comment color to be $PSStyle.foreground.green, you can do that. without having to try to discover what the ANSI sequences is. Once you start using this more and more, you'll start probably being like me and branching away from PSStyle, .foreground or .background, because that they came up with that to try to simplify, so you don't have to try to figure out all these archaic, mind-numbing letter number sequences and the funky square bracket and the it hurts your head until you get used to it. So PSStyle is kind of a way to abstract that for a lot of people. But once you start working with it a lot, especially if you start diving into the RGB values and finding, if you want to work with the drawing colors, say, oh yeah, I like corn silk. That's the color I want to use. Okay, I just have to discover the RGB value, and I've given you tools to easily do that. And then you can define a color with PSStyle, or just use the native ANSI escape sequence. That's a tough one to say. So yeah, if people have other questions, you know, they can find me on the socials, and happy to help out.
Excuse me, can I ask something right now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I will make it
Yes.
long because I joined late, unfortunately, because of a doctor's meeting I had. So I'm just gonna be honest. I just know the word shell from Linux because I'm just now about to start at Telespazio. They're actually the main contractor for European Space Agency. And I'm studying applied mathematics, and I've done pretty much of programming with C++, like object-oriented programming, and Python and Java, like app developing. And I was just curious about PowerShell because at this new job, they told me that I'm gonna maybe use Linux. So I thought maybe it could be helpful to know about PowerShell, but I think maybe it's something completely different, right? I was just like, it's not quite the same what it is in Linux, because in Linux is actually you can run commands. That's how I got it, the shell. But maybe I'm wrong.
It's too bad you were not in person and don't have a couple hours to kill, because any one of us on this group, on this call here, would be more than thrilled to show you what's in store.
Oh, cool.
It's a huge, it's a huge topic. So the stuff that I was just talking about today is really kind of just one little feature in PowerShell. So what you need to do is, well, I don't know where should she start?
And I think what I will share, because you have a great list of sources for people who start using PowerShell, I think with books and videos, and so I'm just trying to find it on it's called Essential PowerShell Learning Resources, right? So that's, I think, also a good starting point to get a general idea of what you can do with PowerShell and the different ways of how you can learn it, like with sessions like this, or with books, or with videos. I mean, at the beginning, I mentioned this book, where Jeffrey Hicks, he's one of the co-writers. So these are all, I think, good ways of getting into understanding PowerShell, and maybe also finding the similarities and differences between what you might know from the Linux world. When you're talking about Bash, I guess, and because PowerShell, of course, because it's object oriented, it's a different way of working and scripting, but I think it's all about the results and the things that you want to achieve with it. But digging deeper and looking at the resources that I just also added into the chat, I think would be a good starting point to find your way through what the learning of PowerShell. And also, there is a great online community on Discord, on Slack, on LinkedIn as well. So I think that's where, because I think I remember your name. I think you followed me like the last couple of days, I think. So There is a PowerShell group on LinkedIn as well, which is great, where you can ask questions. So a lot of possibilities.
Okay, because me being a student of applied mathematics, I sometimes get lost in too much of the theory part, and I think it's better learning by doing. I mean, sure, you have to check the theory, but I think when it comes to programming stuff, you always have to, just do it in practice. So
yeah, find the use case and just, get your teeth in it and get it done.
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
But I will check out all the links you got here in the chat. And thank you so much.
Sure.
Good luck.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, and the PSStyle stuff, if I didn't make it clear, because it's PowerShell 7, it will work cross-platform.
Okay,
so
cool.
If you are running cross-platform scripts and want to mess around with the color stuff, that will work there.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Something I saw in the Jeff, I think some advice is what best commands to learn. Get command, get help, get member.
Yeah, yep. There's kind of the holy trinity. And then if you add in select object, if you can understand how to work with those commands, you can do just about anything you need to do, at least enough to be dangerous in PowerShell. And it doesn't matter whether it's Windows PowerShell, PowerShell 7, Linux, Mac, it doesn't matter. It's the same commands, it's the same language, especially the basics. Basics haven't changed since version 3, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, Jeff, thanks a lot. That was really great. And being with us from the lake. So it looks like you're kind of
well, that's not my real background. My real background is plain pine paneling, but I'll put up something nicer.
And maybe it's now time to get out with your dog. Maybe go for a walk.
Well, I took her out for a walk before, because
Okay.
lately she's been pawing at lunch, at about this time, wanting to go out, because it's been really cold and we had lots of snow, and she's kind of a mountain breed, and so she loves being out in the snow and cold. But now it's getting warmer and the snow is melting, and she's not so keen to go out.
Not so happy. Okay. Cool.
The colder and more snow, the better.
All right. Okay. A snow dog.
Oh yeah, she loves snow. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So again, I think I will stop the recording. So again, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks for being here, Jeff, and showing us all the great stuff with PSStyle. That's really cool. And